All right, we are live. This is live on the Spirit of Business. My name is Reese Roberts, and I am here because I want to introduce a few concepts to you guys about the law, about corporate structure, about the structure of America. I think it's really important for us to have this talk about the United States government and really what it's all about as far as it being a corporation. This may go over some people's head, but I am going to do my best to make sure that I can break it down for you in a way that it will make sense and in a way that you can follow up with this information to make it mean something to you in your personal life. Okay. So, today we're going to be talking about why it matters that the United States is a federal corporation. What does it mean for the government to actually be a corporation? Because when we hear that, I think a lot of people just, kind of breeze over it. Like, okay, the United States is a government or the United States is a corporation. So, let's just go into a little bit about corporate law. And, well, firstly, I want to actually show you where the Code of Federal Regulations talks about the definition of the United States and what it actually means under the law. Because we know that when we are studying the law, when we are interpreting the law, we have to interpret it in a way that it uses the legal definitions of things inside, inside of our interpretation of that law or statute or legislation or piece of legislation. Okay, so um, firstly, let me share my screen with you guys. Hopefully, anybody that's watching on YouTube or Facebook, you'll be able to see this. Um, Let me get here. This is my tab. Here we go. All right, so now we are looking at the Code of Federal Regulations on law.cornell.edu. And this is Title 28, U.S. Code Section 3002, where it talks about the definitions of certain terms. So when you are reading through the Code of Federal Regulations, you'll see all these different links that take you to a specific place to give you the definitions of the words. So if we click on this, it should take us to a place where it tells us specifically what the United States means. And you'll see here it says United States means a federal corporation. B, an agency, department, commission, board, or other entity of the United States. And that would be another corporate body, another corporation that is federally controlled, or an instrumentality of the United States. And when they say instrumentality, they simply mean businesses, businesses, entities, trusts, different legal structures that the United States uses in order to govern, in order to actually keep control in society, to regulate the economy, to lobby for different political figures, and to do other things that we don't necessarily agree with. So what I want to kind of go over with you is like very basic, um, I want to say metaphor, okay, for what this means and how it should influence our thinking when we're talking about the federal government. All right, because I tell people all the time, the government is simply in business. Okay, they're not some kind of authority. They're not some kind of appointed figure. They're not there um, to really help anybody. They're not really doing anything of any value. So when we talk about this as a corporation, it's just like any other corporation. Okay. If you didn't like Target, or if you didn't like Walmart, or if you didn't like Amazon, what would you do? You would just stop shopping there, right? Would anybody come and arrest you if you stopped shopping at Target or Walmart or Amazon? No. Would anybody tax you, or would anybody, I don't know, would you have any adverse reactions from Target or Walmart if you stopped shopping there? No, you would not. And this is what I'm saying about the reality of the federal government. We could disassociate our dealings and our contracting and our shopping with the federal government as far as federal services or government services are concerned without any repercussions. I think the biggest thing that needs to be understood here is that in general, we just don't know how to disassociate because the federal government imposes itself onto the American people. Okay, this is an imposition on the American people by way of implied or what they call unilateral contracts. All right, a unilateral contract is something that is invalid because it only contains one party. And for a contract to be valid, there must be two parties under contract law, what we know about contract law. All right. And so this is something extremely important to understand because when we are talking about these unilateral contracts and we're talking about things that have been implied but not expressed, then we have an issue about what it means to be in compliance with the law, what it means to be a law abiding citizen, what it means to be a citizen, period. If you are not contracting with the federal government, then you are not a citizen. If you are not an employee of the federal government, then you are not a United States citizen. If you don't want to be a beneficiary of any of the trust instruments that the United States uses, you don't have to. Okay, you can govern by yourself by simply using contract law because that's all the government uses in order to govern over people. They use contract law. All right. So when we look at what's happening here, take a look at this. Take a look at it. Okay. You look at all of these different codes. Okay. It tells you what these things mean. What is a person? And you can have a natural person, which is it says an individual Indian. Why would they really put this specification in here that you as a person you can be an individual Indian? I'm assuming that because that's where they got all this American land from. Okay, so a person includes a natural person, it includes a corporation, it includes a partnership, it includes an unincorporated association, a trust or an estate, or any other public or private entity, including a state. Okay, or local government or an Indian tribe. Now, I want you to pay close attention to these different definitions because, like I said, if you are a person, okay, a corporation can be a person. All right. So now, if you look down here and you see the United States, it says a federal corporation. Okay, what is a federal anything? A federal anything is simply a collection of people or a collection of entities. That's all it is. A federal anything is just simply a collection of entities or a collection of persons. All right. So what does that tell you? If I wanted myself to be a federal corporation, what would I need to do? Just me, my family, my friends. If we wanted to produce our own federal corporation, what would we need to do, you guys? Look at the wording. We would need to form any one of these entities in order for us to be included in what the corporation is capable of doing. Okay. Even if you have an unincorporated association, all of these types of persons, okay, they are all capable of governing themselves. The same way the government is telling us that we have to follow their corporate rules. If I went and wrote out my own corporate governing laws or governing articles of incorporation, if I go and write my own constitution, if I go and draw up these types of documents for myself, then I am essentially the same as the federal government, especially if I am governing over more than just myself. When I create my corporate body or my unincorporated association or my trust or my estate or anything else, my private entity, it says any other public or private entity. You understand? I could, including a local government. Why would I not be able to be my own local government? Okay, if I'm following after these definitions. This is why we have to understand why it is important. It is extremely important to know what it means for the United States to be a corporation. A corporation is no more your authority than it is over anyone else. Okay, I should say it this way: the United States is no more of an authority than Target or Walmart or Amazon. Target, Walmart, and Amazon all govern themselves. Do you understand? They all have their own body of government. They all have their own appointed representatives. They all have their own treasurers. They all have their own what executive? What do you call it? The president, the secretary. They all have these. All there's these things on their own. So when we say that the United States is a corporation, it means that you do not have to contract with them on a level of government if you don't want to. Now, we see a situation where people are thinking, well, if I don't pay my taxes or file my taxes, then the United States government might send the IRS after me. Or if I don't get a driver's license, then they might, pull me over and arrest me. Or if I don't go to court whenever they call me into court, then they might, arrest me then or throw me in contempt. And let me tell you something. When we study the law, when we study the law, we realize that there is no regulation, no stipulation, there's no requirement for you to comply with anything if you have not contracted to do so. If you have not contracted to do so, then you have zero liability to comply with any corporate rules. It's just like when you see anti-maskers, they walk into a store and they tell the store, oh, well, by law, I don't have to wear a mask. And then the store says, yes, you do. We're privately owned. The store is absolutely correct. If you're an anti-masker and you're in a store and they are privately owned, they are privately governed. When you walk onto their premises, you are under contract with them, but to be under their governing body. You have to follow their rules if you're on their property. And it's the same thing with the United States. But we have an issue because we think the United States is about the 50 territories or the 50 states. But in fact, you guys, the United States is actually only in reference to what we see. Let me see. United States means a federal corporation, an agency, only their agencies. That's what the United States is. It's only their agencies. It's only their departments. It's only their commission. It's only their board or the other entities of the United States, which would be their corporations. It does not include the states. Why is that? Let me tell you something. When you create a child, does your child tell you what to do or do you govern over the child? This is the same relationship that states have with the federal government. Back when the founding fathers put together this constitution and they put together the regulations or the regulatory body, political, structure of the United States, what they did was they created the federal government because they knew that there would be certain things that they would not be able to do to govern themselves as a collection of states or individual states. So they decided, let me create the federal government or a federal conglomerate of corporations, private owners who own these corporations. And we're going to assign responsibilities to the federal government that we have created. All right. So what does that mean? It means that if I created the federal government because I'm a state and I need to assign or I need to attribute certain tasks to the federal government, then the federal government is not controlling me. I am simply contracting with the federal government. We're not this. There is no control mechanism. The same way if you create a child, you have a control mechanism with that child. Are you able to completely reign over that child and control every move that they're doing? No. You're simply contracting and in agreement with that child to say, I know what's best for you. Would you like for me to tell you what to do? Because we all know that we have children that don't obey or don't go by what we say. They know that they have their own sovereign ability to act or not to act. we are no different, you guys. The federal government was created by the states of the United States. So when they are created by the states, they have no actual jurisdiction to control the states or what is happening in those territories. I was looking for another definition here where it shows you what the actual United States is. I'm trying to see if I can find that for you guys, because it talks about certain only Puerto Rico, the District of Columbia, and there's another. I want to say. I can't remember what. Oh, it's not on there. I can't remember what the other territory is, but it tells you that the United States is limited. It does not include all 50 states. Gosh, I wish I had that on hand. I should have brought it up before I got on here, but I didn't think of it. But I want you to know that these are the matters we're talking about when we tell you that the United States is a corporation. So when we are teaching and educating you about privatization, all that means is that you are privately governing, okay? It means you are privately using contracts, no different than the federal corporation. You're using private contracts to be able to govern your own affairs. I'm going to give you a good example of something that I don't tell very many people because it's a part of my service to small businesses, okay? If you're operating a small business and you're looking for the government to, or you're looking to deregulate certain parts of your business from government regulation, okay? I'm going to use the payroll system as an example. Right now, you have small businesses that are using their resources to collect involuntary deductions out of people's paychecks, okay? What is an involuntary contract, you guys? Can you tell me what is an involuntary contract? Okay, because what I know about contract law, an involuntary action is invalid. It's void. It's null and void. If somebody comes to you and says, "Would you like to buy this?" and you say no, and then but they still give it to you, like, is that if it's involuntary, it's an invalid contract. So what happens when a small business says, listen, I don't want to contract with the federal government anymore to involuntarily take money from my employees to send it over to the IRS, knowing that they may or may not even owe anything to the IRS at the time I'm taking this money from their check? What would that employer need to do? That employer would need to send information to the IRS to say, I have a private agreement. I have a private contract that governs how I build a relationship and how I deduct or manage the transactions financially between me and my employees. You send that information to the IRS, and I'm telling you, mark my words, they have no ability. You can call the Department of Labor if you think I'm lying. They have no ability to infringe or impose on your private contract between two or more parties. Between two or more parties. Wherever there is no contract, there is no regulation, there is no law. Wherever there is no contract, okay? So I want you guys to understand this. The United States is a corporation, and they require your agreement. You have to voluntarily agree to be a part of the system that is the United States Federal Corporation. And I want you to know about the impact that that has on our society if we're able to practice it that way. Because if we're able to say, you know what, I'm going to teach myself how to privately contract on governing my own life so that I make the federal government obsolete. What could we do, in a situation where we're no longer contracting with the federal government? We could stop lobbying. We could stop involuntary deductions coming out of our checks. We could stop funding private missions of the federal government, like what you see about this COVID situation. If you don't think that COVID was a private mission that's been executed in our country, you must not be paying very much attention. And I mean that with all due respect. You have to be paying attention. These are privately owned and privately funded missions that are being executed using public money, because people that are considered the public don't actually know that there is actually no such thing as the public. There is no such thing. And if you think I'm lying, I want you to look at what a quasi-public or a quasi-private entity is. A quasi-public agency, okay, or a quasi-private agency. What it means is that if we are the public, okay, if we are the public, that means we're just a part of a general group of people, okay? But as soon as we go into contract, we become private, which is not general at all. It's very specific. Okay. And this might all seem like, okay, I still don't understand why it matters that the United States is a federal government if they're going to impose, they're going to arrest people, they're going to be locking you up, taking your money out of your bank account. But that's the reason why we teach privatization, because you have two forms of government. Okay. You have the federal government, which is public for people who don't know anything about their ability to contract privately. And then you have private governance. There's two different ways to govern yourself. You have two options. Okay. And so that's why we teach about privatization, because if you're a private person, when you go to court, you make sure you don't enter into any contracts when you enter the courtroom. And then you don't have to follow the regulations. Okay. If you're a private person, when you get a job, you privately contract with your employer. You don't enter into any federal contracts by giving them a W-2 or excuse me, by giving them a W-9 or a W-4 form for them to take your involuntary deductions. The only way an employer can even take that money out of your check is if you give them a W-4 form, which is not required. It is not required. If you look at the documents, those things are not required in order for you to obtain employment. You can choose any identifying number, which can be your EIN number, where you don't have to have any taxes taken out of your check. Okay. So when we say these things, it's not just for flair. It's not just to say, oh, the federal government is a corporation. It's a corporation. And then all that's supposed to fall to the wayside. No, this means you need to act on these things, learn about privatization or learn about private governance, because if you learn how to maintain your private status, learn how to maintain your refusal to enter into any contracts with the federal government, then you get into a place of power when you know how to use affidavits. Okay, you know how to, you know how to use an affidavit, or you know how to say, I'm going to file this declaration, or I'm going to file this constitution, or I'm going to create this unincorporated association, or I'm going to submit a 1099 so that I can get paid, or submit a 1099 so that I can get my tax money back. Okay, there are different things that you can do to govern yourself administratively. And that's the reason why Serve Incorporated is actually here. When I worked for the IRS, for so long, for years, I would sit at my desk and I would process claims, and I would wonder, why are people sending so much money to the IRS when they don't owe anything? Why is this happening this way? Why are we paying in tax money that we have yet to determine if we even owe it? I would see people getting $8,000, $9,000 refunds and go and look and see that they had $3,500 being sent to the IRS during the year. It's problematic because the IRS does not pay you any benefit. You could have taken that same $3,500, put it into a interest-bearing account like an insurance account. You could have put it into a bank account. You could have invested in a CD or bought some stocks and bonds. You could have done anything that would have caused your money to make money for you. But instead, you simply paid it into the Internal Revenue Service, not even owing anything. Not even owing it. You're getting a refund back, but yet you're still giving them your money during the year. You could be buying food. Like I said, you could be saving and earning money on interest. You could be buying a car. You could be, putting your child through school or, daycare, whatever. But instead, the IRS has people thinking that these payments are mandated, that they're mandatory. They are not. Okay, and there are so many other things that I want to introduce you guys to about this private governing private relationship that you can maintain with your own system of governance. And that means you would need to create a will. It means you need to have what they call it, a last will and testament. It means that you need to have different EIN numbers if you choose to incorporate, or if you choose to have a nonprofit organization that you can use as a tax exempt option. You can do an unincorporated association to handle your affairs. You can do so many other things instead of contracting with the federal government. Because when you contract with the federal government, that means they're going to manage your money. That means they're going to manage your child's education. That means they're going to manage your retirement, or it means the federal government's going to manage your health. It means they're going to manage all these other things that you probably don't want them to manage. But if you haven't studied, or if you have not become aware, just simply being aware of the fact that these people don't have the authority nor the jurisdiction to be able to enforce or impose themselves on you. The only reason why this is happening is because common people don't know how to articulate their private governance. They don't know how to say, I don't want to come to court and pay you something that I'm not required to pay you. All these laws, I'm going to show you guys this one more time. All of these laws that belong to the federal government, look at this. I'm going to show you what this looks like. Look at all of these different U.S. codes. These are codes that belong to one business, one corporation. Okay. Now, if you say, I don't want to contract with you for any of this stuff, I don't want you controlling my education, so I'm not going to contract with you. I don't want you to control my food and drug. Not going to contract with you. I don't want you to govern my highway passing and all this other stuff I got going on. I'm not going to contract with you. All of these things that the government is managing for us. How are they doing? I want to ask you this. How are they doing when it comes to banks and banking? Are they doing really good, or are we bailing each other? Are we bailing these banks out every 5 years, or however many, every 10 years? The census information that they collect on us, are they making good on that? You see this, the census, are they making good on that? Because when I hear, we need to count you and we need to take an inventory of everything that's going on in your house so we can help you better, I have not seen the help be better at all. I have not seen the census work or operate in the way that it's supposed to. When we talk about copyrights, or we talk about crimes and criminal procedures, do you see crime and criminal activity being helped at all? Or do you see the federal government participating in these things? Okay. We're talking about, like I said, education. Look at the education system. Is it passing or failing right now? Are we giving the federal government an A or an F when it comes to the job they're doing to manage and govern on education? You understand? What about the healthcare system, food and drugs? This is healthcare. Are they doing a good job on this? Because if they are, then yeah, go ahead and let them keep governing you. But if not, we might want to consider becoming our own corporate or federal corporation so that we can be our own governing systems and our own governing bodies. Okay. These are the types of things that we're talking about, that are labor. Come on now, you guys. The governing of labor. Who has the authority to govern over labor? I want to know that. Who ever told another person, hey, I'm going to govern your labor. I'm going to govern how you work and where you work and how much you make when you work and all this other stuff. Why would you not be the person who determines all that stuff for yourself? Okay. When we go into entrepreneurship, that's what you see. When you're an entrepreneur, you are literally governing your own labor. Okay. All these things are determined by the individual when you become a contractor. Why? Because that's what contract law is. You govern yourself. If you are a contractor, do you have any taxes taken out of your check? No, you do not. Why? Because you're privately contracting. You're not having another third party imposing their stipulations or their governing over your labor. Do you understand? These are all the different things that we don't get a chance to understand because we don't get exposed to these things in school. We have lawyers all over the place who have no idea what all this stuff says. We have all kinds of professors and law professors and people who are passing the bar every day that don't have any idea what all this stuff is talking about inside of these codes. all these codes of law. A lot of people don't know anything about the fact that when you click into one of these things and you say, listen, I want to figure out how the post office is charging me money to use the post. Okay, because we don't even know that the post and the post office are two different things. The post office is a privately owned government federal corporation. The post is a natural science where you're sending correspondence back and forth by way of a carrier. Okay, that is a political science, or that is a science that we could privatize it if we wanted to. Okay, there is something that I use. I'm going to show you guys something that I use. Okay, this is a stamp that I had made. I'm going to see if I can get y'all to see that up close. It's a stamp that I had made so that I could send correspondence through the post office for free. And what it says on here is first class, non-domestic, without prejudices, USC 1-207, BK 12, statuses at large or statutes at large. And then it has Chapter 71, Section 23, which is where you find the law for this. And this is 37th Congress, Session 111. Now, you guys, when I stamp this on my mail, I send it for free. Why? Because when I click into these codes and these statutes, it talks about how I can send my information for free. Okay. So all I have to do and I'm literally not kidding, I stamped this on, I went and got this made for $20-something, and I will never pay postage again. Why? Because the post is not something that was created by the government. They have no right to tell you that that they're going to charge you for something that is free. Okay. It is free. And so this is something that I do to show you guys that when we are talking about a corporation, you do not have to contract with a corporation. You do not have to allow the federal government to tell you what you're going to do with your kids. I have clients that come to me right now that have children that are being taken or kidnapped by the Child Protective Services. Okay, we have people that are being their homes of decades being taken from them because they're not paying property taxes on something that they've paid twice for already. Did you know that if you're a private contractor, okay, when you sign for something, that's called a promissory note. A promissory note is a form of legal tender. Okay, a form of legal tender or a remittance. When you sign something, it's called payment, you guys. When you go and you sign off on your mortgage, and they tell you to turn around and pay it again after you done signed for it, you're doubly paying. Why? Because what these people are going to do with your signature and your social security number is they're going to take that signature, they're going to dip into the financial account that is your social security account. Okay, your social security account number is attached to an account. It is a financial account. So when they tell you, oh, sign right here on the dotted line, they're not just getting money from you when you're paying. They're getting money from you right then and there on the spot from your Social Security account. And then I'm going to tell you this. That's why the Social Security money is probably not going to be there when everybody's looking for it. Everybody who's been paying into the system is probably not going to be there for you. It's probably because these things are crashing down. First of all, the money that we pay for taxes has never gone to the public benefit. And there are laws in this same Code of Federal Regulations. If you look for it, it will tell you the federal government is actually not using the money for public benefit, you guys. It is a privately owned institution. It's a privately owned corporation. And I'm going to tell you, the only people that are legally bound to uphold and to comply with all of these statutes, all of these codes of law, are the people who work for the federal government. Do you hear me? That's it. The people who are considered government organization employees. Okay. Employees of the federal government. These are the only people. You see this? These are the only people who have to follow these rules because they work there and they are considered the property of the United States government. If you look up the legal definition of an employee, okay, the legal definition, not just, oh, I got a job. The legal definition of an employee is a person who does not have the ability to govern their own affairs or sustain their own life unless they have another person providing for them. That is what an employee is under the law. And I need you to hear this, because when they tell you, oh, I'm your employer, what they're saying is, I'm your slave master. When they call you an employee, they're saying, the reason why I'm taking this money out of your check as an involuntary deduction is because you don't have the intelligence or the wherewithal to actually manage your own financial responsibilities as a fiduciary of your own estate or your own trust. And when this happens, it causes fear to be ensued amongst the people. And they say, oh, well, I have to be an employee because they're not going to do contract. They're not going to contract with me if I'm not reliant upon them. But let me tell you something. When you sign your employment contract, is that not a contract? What you're doing is essentially putting yourself subject to both of these different types of governance when you do that. Okay, you're signing a contract which was good enough. They could have had you sign the employment contract and just paid you on a 1099, get your gross pay. But instead, they're not just going to get the employment contract and tell you, oh, yes, you're a contractor, let me pay you your gross pay, and you worry about the IRS. No, the IRS doesn't want that to happen. So the IRS says, no, 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 no. These people have to rely on you to give them this job. So you're going to be responsible for taking this money out. And so a lot of employers are in a position they don't even realize they are in a place of a disadvantage themselves. They become a qualified intermediary, or they become something that's called a withholding agent. Neither one of these positions are legally mandated for them, and neither one of these positions are an obligation for them. But they are under the impression, okay, that they have to do this if they create your schedule for you. These are the stipulations that the IRS tells them. If you're making their schedule, then you're the employer. Okay. But if you're not making their schedule, then you guys are just contracting. If they're using your office, then you're the employer. But if they're using their own office, then they're a contractor. If they're using your equipment, then you're the employer. But if they're using their own equipment, then they're a contractor. And so they go and they play these little split hair games with you to get you to think that you're not contracting, but that you're being employed. Okay. What happens when you employ something? If you employ a tactic, or if you employ different measures, it means that you're using something in order to get something done, right? So what is the difference between them using you to get the job done without taking your money versus using you to get the job done while they're taking your money? It's no different. You're still doing the job, no matter how it gets done. They're giving you that as a load of BS because they want to continuously feed into this tax system that is a voluntary system. I know you guys have heard of Sister Sherry Peel Jackson, the ex-IRS agent that said, I will give you thousands of dollars if you can show me one law that says anybody is required to pay a tax. Okay. And all these years, you've seen an ex-IRS agent after ex-IRS agent come out and say, this is voluntary, y'all. This is voluntary, y'all. This is voluntary, y'all. I'm another one. Like I said, I used to work there, and I'm telling you, it is voluntary, y'all. When I tell you it's voluntary, it is voluntary. And so the reason why we're here to educate you, you need to go to my website. If you don't know yet, you can go to servebossinc.com. I'm going to put it in my chat real quick just so you guys can see. Okay, because this is something that we all need to figure out. We have to figure out how we can stay in our private governance. Okay, private governance is the order of the day, because if we continue to allow the federal government or these federal corporations to insert themselves into what we're doing, how much longer do you guys think we'll have as a nation to be able to self-sustain? How much longer do you guys think we'll be able to avoid things that we don't want to be a part of our society, like this immunization shot, or what do you call it, the vaccine? What do you think? How much longer do you guys think we'll be able to stop these people from imposing themselves further and further? They want to take our guns away. They want to introduce immoral things to our children in schools. They want to do all these different things. And we're stuck with doing what? just simply allowing it. All right. So I'm going to leave you guys with this, but I want to tell you one more thing. You can go to keepadding.co. This is another one of my projects. And this is something that I'm working on to help our community to get our business resources collected in one place so that we can start competing with the federal government as a conglomerate of corporations. So what I'm telling you is this, very simply, you guys. If the federal government, okay, is nothing but a bunch of business owners who got together and said, "Hey, listen, I want to create a service. I want to create a business, okay? And I want to have the public is my target market." Okay? These are private people who created the concept of a public so that they could employ themselves. Okay? They gave themselves the job of being a government services industry to their target market, which is considered the public, as they have called it themselves. All right. So if they say, "I want to get together and I want to create these businesses," we're going to create an agency that comes together to do testing on food and drugs. Okay. Because we're going to serve the public by keeping the public's food and drugs safe. What is there stopping any other group of people from doing the same thing? Okay. I've been saying this for probably a year or two now, but I finally put together something where I could see this come to fruition. All right. And I'm going to share this with you guys too. So I'm going to tell you this because when we have these type of resources being put together and we say, "Listen, I don't like the services. I don't like the government services industry as it stands." Why? Because it's monopolized. Who else is competing with the United States government? Or I should say the Vatican, because to be quite honest with you, the Vatican is really the sole provider of government services around the globe. Okay. And when I say, well, I should say the U.S. services around the globe, because the United States, they're going around, they're creating republics. That's really what that's what their agenda is, or they're creating democracies where people are supposed to be voting and all this other stuff. This is the job that they've given to themselves. So what is there to stop any other corporate body, which is privately owned, from saying, "You know what, I think we can actually compete. I think we can actually compete." If you're telling me that all I have to do at this point is create a corporation, write out the constitution to that corporation to govern itself, and then all I have to do is what? Get people to contract with my government or with my constitution? That, to me, is a whole nother ball game. And this is something that we're not talking about. We're not talking about it enough, but we need to talk about it. We must talk about it because this is what's actually happening. The federal government is simply a business. And if government services is an industry, we need to have more competition. It's plain and simple as that. We need to have more competition in the government services industry. Okay, because we don't have any at all right now. So, and I'm talking about only here in America. I'm not talking about having the Chinese come over here to try to govern us. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Americans governing themselves, not being governed by another party. We have the ability to build our own infrastructures. Listen to me. We have the ability to build our own infrastructures, decentralizing the entire system by simply contracting, y'all. Contract law. Contract law. If I tell another person, let's say I have a business, let's say let's say I am a chemist, okay, and I have all the tools necessary for me to test the chemical composition of food and drugs. Why would I not be able to get a couple of my friends, create an agency, privately owned, just like the federal government, and say, "You know what? I think I'm also going to check the food and the drugs of the American public, of the American people. I want to also check and see as another federal agency, another federal corporation, And I'm going to have a competitive agency that says, you know what, FDA, y'all aren't really doing a great job. So we're going to enter the government services market, and we're going to say, how about you guys start coming over here, okay, for your labels, for your FDA approved labels, or for your regulations and your governance about how you're going to make food and drugs safer for the American people, because obviously right now it's not safe for us. Right now, the food and drugs that we consume are not safe. So who is going to stop anybody from doing that? The federal government does not. First of all, I'm going to show you this, okay, because I was just on this thing. It talks about the fact that the federal government cannot hold monopolies. Nobody can hold monopolies. I'm trying to see if I can find it. Is that what I was looking at earlier? The seat of the government? Oh, no, I was looking at the finance. But okay, let me get to it. Lord have mercy, because I want to show y'all this. It's important. Was that what I was looking at? The budget process or money management? It's in here somewhere. I can't remember what I was just looking at. Good God. But anyway, when you look in here, gosh, I wish I had it. It talked about that. But I think you guys probably know that already, that the government cannot have, or nobody can have monopolies. Nobody can have monopolies on the market. And so when we're looking at these things, we want to make sure that we're holding the federal government liable for these things. Okay. We have to hold the government liable, and we also have to use the law the way it is designed to be used. Okay. We have to know how to go through these laws and these codes and actually enforce them according to the way we operate. All right. So I want you guys to share this, and I want you to visit these websites that I gave you. It's keepadding.co. Let me give you that right there. It's keepadding.co. Okay, I'm going to put it on the screen for you so you can see it. This is the platform that we're using, okay, so that we can help to collect business resources that have the capacity to serve the public as competition for the United States government. This is keepadding.co. Right now, we are in our very, very beginning stages of development on this platform. So right now we have very limited features on here, because what's happening is we're starting off with the minimum viable product, which is normal. And then once we finish our beta testing of the platform, then we'll start to add on features as we go ahead and do our crowdfunding for the further development of the platform. Okay, so that's keepadding.co. When you go there, what you're looking for is the forum. Okay, and I'm going to tell you this: when you get in the forum, you're able to create channels of discussions, just like you can do on Reddit. All right, on this platform, you create a channel to talk about whatever topic you want to talk about. We like to keep the channels general because we're talking about different capacity or different areas of society. This would be things like your education. This would be things like banking. This would be things like housing, things like healthcare, things like the court systems. We're talking about all these different pieces of our social infrastructure. And we're talking about how we can change these things, how we can use our individual business resources to create competition for the federal government. Why? Because the federal government is failing. Okay. Or I would like to say, even better yet, they have failed. We have to start building our own social infrastructures that are accommodating for our own missions. Because obviously nobody cares in the federal government what we're struggling with. Okay, you got issues with healthcare? So what? We have a mission that we're trying to depopulate the world. So we're going to go forward with these vaccinations, and we're not talking about cancer. We're not talking about the food contents, or we're not talking about environmental toxins going into your food. No. We're not going to talk about all that. We're going to go right on into get vaccinated. Okay, because that's our mission. So when I say we're going to use our forums to start talking about how can we change these things? How can we use individual resources? If I tell you that I don't like the education system, then what does that mean? It means what I need to do is I need to create a system of education that is going to compete with the one that's already there. How do we do that? Well, in my vision, I believe we have enough teachers in the world for us to get enough of them to say, you know what, I'm going to come out of the public school system because it's no longer serving the purpose of rightly and righteously educating these children. So as a teacher who's passionate about what I do, I'm going to come out of the public school system and I'm going to create a product of education that competes, that actually serves my target market. There are parents everywhere that are looking for other alternative resources to educate their child. And we're having to go here and there, to and fro, to find these different resources. But if we get on this platform and when we have these discussions, we can clearly outline what it's going to take for us to say, you know what, we can create another centralized infrastructure that says, all of you teachers, go online, post your curriculum online and put it under one brand so that we can find the best teacher, the best curriculum that's going to suit my student. And I can use that centralized platform to go to and get an accredited education for my child, accredited by the people, not accredited by some artificial third party that has zero best interest for its target market. And when I say target market, that is because the federal government is a corporation. It is a corporation. So yes, when I tell you that we need to compete, there is no area of commerce where competition is not welcome. There is no corner of commerce or commercial capitalism where competition is not possible. The only thing we must do is plan for it, talk about it, get the infrastructure, get the projects created. That's another feature of our platform that is currently available. You can subscribe to our business package and you can start creating business projects. You can start finding people to work on those business projects right there in the forum, on the platform, all in one place. Like-minded people, people with resources, people with education, people who have a knowledge of these things, people who have a desire to see improvement. This is what we're talking about. We're not going to keep allowing the IRS or the federal government or any other leg of the federal government to continue bringing our society down to the bare minimum of what is happening on the world stage. We're undereducated. We're unhealthy. Okay, we're angry. We're living in fear. We have all these other impositions. Things are not coming from our mental processes. They're coming from the federal government. We can't go 1 year without some kind of epidemic. We got Ebola. We got the what do you call that thing? The West Nile virus. We got mad cow disease. Now it's this, and then it's that, and then it's AIDS, and then we got all this other stuff. When is the healthcare system going to make us healthy? When are things going to be healthy? When are we going to have health? Okay, we got healthcare for days, but ain't no health. There's no health. So that should tell us something. This thing is failing, and we need to do better. Okay, so I want you guys to also look here. Okay, this is the website, servebossinc.com. All right, we have a frequently asked question page. If you are wondering about what privatization is, I highly encourage you to go to this website and look at our frequently asked question. Look at the FAQ page because it will introduce you to what's happening. It will introduce you to what we're doing and give you a good indication of how we're going to be attacking this this market of uneducated individuals who don't know anything about private contracted or private contract law. Okay, so I want you guys to use those resources. Please reach out to me if you have questions, if you want to get involved, if you want to know more, anything at all. And I'll do my best to stay consistent with going live, y'all. I can't stand going live these days. But I want you guys to please remember that this means something when we say the federal government is a corporation. That means the federal government is open for competition. Do you hear me? At the very bare minimum, the government is open for competition because they are open for business. They are not here as some kind of benevolent, charitable force. They're here to make money and they're here to capitalize. And we should be no different. We can make money doing good for our nation, just the same way they're making money to do immoral things to our nation. And I, for one, do not like to sit back and watch it happen. Okay. So I'm going to encourage all of you guys to use these websites. Go ahead and log on and become a part of our early adapters on the Keep Adding platform. It's called the Ad Network, affectionately named after my late mother. I really want you guys to get on this thing and start having these discussions. And like I said, we are in the very, very beginning stages of development. We intend to continue developing this thing on as it's ongoing, just like Facebook. I know you guys remember when Facebook first started, you couldn't do nothing. Okay. The only thing you could do was add your college email. That was the only people that was on Facebook when it first started. Okay. And so our platform is no different. We have little features, but we have lots of purpose. Okay. Little features, but lots of purpose. But the more we grow, our features will grow with us. And we are inviting you to become an early adapter to the platform so that you can help us get this conversation out and make sure that you are becoming a part of the shaping of the infrastructure of America, because that is our goal. Our goal is to make sure that America is being shaped in the way that Americans actually want for it to be shaped. And we're not going to continue to allow these privately owned entities to come onto our land and tell us what we're going to do and what we're not going to do and how we're going to do it and how we're not going to. No. We have to stand up for ourselves. And we have to speak up for ourselves. We have to continue to raise these issues and make sure that we press them on. There is no such thing as a critical race theory because there's only one race. We're not going to keep arguing about this, about hatred and all these other things. We have one common enemy, and that is the United States federal government. One common enemy. These people are guilty of all kinds of treason. These people are guilty of all kinds of racketeering and profiteering and extortion and all these things, fraud. And it is upsetting to me because we are none the wiser. We don't know what's going on. So it's very hard for us to even be able to mitigate the circumstances. Okay, so I really want for you guys to go ahead and give me your feedback. Let me know what you think about the platform. Let me know if you have any questions after you visit our FAQ page. With that, I'm going to let you guys go. Peace and love. I do hope to see you back soon. Please go ahead and click the like and subscribe and share button for as much as you can so that we can get this word out and we can make an impact as best we can. Okay, peace, you guys.